Hello everyone, my name is Mikkel and thank you all for tuning in. In this video I want to demonstrate how to export a mix from Logic Pro 10. This video is going to focus on the part that comes right after recording all your tracks and you're either about to send it out to a mixing engineer or you're about to mix it yourself. This video is intended more for musicians and recording engineers of all levels that want to become more familiar with Logic Pro 10. This video won't be that long, but I stress it's very important to know how to properly export your mix. That way it makes it easier for whoever's mixing it and it will create a better end product. Plus, the engineers will love you more and they'll be more likely to work with you. So let's get started. Alright, so let's say you're like me with recording and you like to use stacking folders and have some rough mixing before you actually do the actual mix. So I'm just going to open all the stacks first, you can see. Alright, looks like everything's already open, perfect. Now normally when you use the folder function, it does route all the tracks into a single output, so it kind of functions similar to a bus. So it's important to know how to export correctly because you could end up just setting out all the buses and that would just result in less tracks and make it harder to mix. So if the engineer has a preference on how they want the tracks organized, I recommend first going to the normal view and then from there just organizing everything based on how they want it. So you can move, if they want drums first, you can move it up here, or if they want bass, you could put bass on top of drums. It doesn't really matter how everything's moved around unless they specify, and you don't have to go around naming everything with numbers yet. I'll show you how to do that when you export the track to make it easier. So if you're using a multi-output MIDI instrument, and that's usually like if you use Contact, Complete Control or something like that, or Superior Drummer, a lot of the times when people try to export those, they just end up exporting a stereo track, which causes a lot of issues. Now there is a trick about that. First you would have to go into the plugin itself. I'm going to do Command 2 to open the mix view. You'd have to go to the plugin itself, and then from there just make sure that you have all your outputs routed correctly within the plugin. From there, once you have all the outputs routed correctly in the plugin, you do all your pre-mixing inside the plugin. I would recommend to go and create the number of stereo tracks. First you have to make sure that the plugin itself is you have Contact, multi-output. From there you create the amount of stereo tracks you have within the plugin itself, and then I would recommend just naming them. So if you're using drums, make sure you name your kick trigger, all that jazz. So from there, once you make sure that you have all your tracks set up and you have all your channels correct, the next part is just making sure that you have everything named correctly too. Just make sure you don't put anything crazy or something like that. All right, and then now I'm just going to go ahead and we're going to go into the exporting part. So I'm going to go to File, Export, All Tracks as Audio Files. From there, it's going to open this window with some navigation. So up here, let's see if we can collapse this. So if you can't see the settings part, you're just going to go ahead and click Options, and that will either collapse or expand that part. So just go ahead and navigate to the folder you want to create. So for this one, I'm just going to call it YouTube demo. Keep it simple. Okay. And then from there, I'm going to go ahead and click Options again. So the first thing I want to talk about is range. So when it says extend file to project end, you get 3 options. I normally click this one, and the reason why is that when you export the mix, it's going to give you the track from start to finish, and then it's going to just have silence whenever the track isn't playing. And that way it's just a little bit more organized. That way if the mixer just wants to plug everything in as is, everything will be uniform. The next one is going to be save format, and you can choose between these 3 options. Again, that would probably depend on if they specify. If not, you could just keep it to WAV and 16-bit. And the next part is pretty important, which is multi-output software instruments. And the reason why is that you could end up just exporting the instrument stuff as a stereo track instead of breaking it down to its individual parts. So what I recommend doing is 1 file per channel strip. And again, just make sure that you have all your channel strips ready. So again, drums, kick trigger, snare tops. And you would select 1 file per channel strip. And then from there, I would recommend to just, leave these 2 blank, unless they specify that they want. If you have any plugins in, if you have any tone plugins for guitars and stuff, you use DI and you do some plugins like that, I'd recommend to not do that, just so that you set the tones as is, but also include the DI tracks. That's a separate track too. And then normalize, I only do overload protection. So the next part is actually pretty interesting, and it makes it a lot easier with the exporting process. And first I'm going to clear this all out. It's the pattern, and it's going to decide how to name each and every track. So let's see, just clear everything out. Okay. All right, it doesn't like me. No worries. So I'm just gonna leave track name on it then. Okay. And then what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna do increment. So you could just grab any of these elements and put them anywhere in. So if you put elements beforehand, we'll just put it right before. So right now it's gonna be increment and track name. And what basically that means is that if I go down the mix and I go to each of those tracks, it's gonna number them from 1 through how many tracks you have. And it's a pretty important tool to have, because if you're trying to make sure that you output the correct number of tracks, it's gonna be a lot easier to just count and see if there's any skips in the numbers, or if you want to organize everything, you could just do it numerically, and that way you keep everything the way it is. Because if you try to do it by the letter, the first letter, you know, you would probably have kick and snare, but they'd probably be in 2 separate places. So that's a pretty useful way to organize the mix as well if you're going on to mixing it yourself. So I usually do increment, and then you could either keep it as is or underscore, and that'll just separate a little bit more. And from there, that's basically it. You can just hit export from there, and then just wait for everything to finish up. Thank you all for watching. I'll be shortly releasing a follow-up video which will show how to set up a mix in Logic Pro 10 and offer various tips. Be sure to like and subscribe to keep up with new content. See you all later.